Let's take a look at how we can add some details, and maybe at the moment the easiest one is the metal part. The metal part we can quite comfortably build out of this part here. So I press Shift D with those faces selected, and in a side view maybe move them down till I hit like the bottom part, and then I can press P to separate those selected faces into a mesh on its own. Okay, so that's not bad. And then maybe I can select those outer edges. No, actually, hold on. I have to select everything because I need to add a thickness. So I press E and just move my mouse up. And you see in the new version of Blender, then you have the Z-axis immediately working. So maybe like this. Okay. And then I can add maybe 2 loop cuts to tighten this. But then there's something else happening. You see here it pinches, and the main reason for that it pinches is, as you can see, my loop cuts go through the complete object. I actually have a solid object here which I mirror. I want to have a hollow object, so those faces I have to delete, and then it's going to look like this again. So it's perfect now. Okay, it's also slightly bigger. That's good. Let's take a look at my reference part. So the edges are actually very round. So instead of having 2 loop cuts, I only need 1. So I could add a loop cut and then delete this edge loop, delete this edge loop, and this seems to be more the way how it should look like. Yeah, okay. Now maybe those edges are a little bit too slowly changing the curvature. So I would like to have a more flat bottom part. So maybe I would like to just round those lower edges a little bit. So I select those edges, and then I can press Ctrl B, B for bevel, and maybe move my mouse slightly so I just start kind of like beveling or chamfering that edge. And I do the same maybe up here as well. So let's see, how does this one look? And then maybe this one I remove. Not too bad, but I want actually maybe like this one to stick out. So I try to push this one this way and this way. And we can see by doing that, I start rounding the edge. And the same here. Okay. Yeah, that seems to be quite good. Now the metal part slightly goes into my main object. So maybe for a moment I push this one onto the second layer so I can easily work on it. And then let's take a look at how maybe we can try to put in the geometry. The easiest way actually would be to select those upper 2 faces I have, press I for insert face, and just eyeball it, maybe like this. And then we have to do a little bit of a mesh repair, because you can see that here it's a little bit crazy what's happening. So the pieces self-intersect. That's actually really bad geometry, but that's not really a big problem. We can easily fix this. So those edges, for example, I can delete because I don't really need them. Now at this point, I would like to move along my x-axis to here, and then I press Ctrl and snap it. Okay, there is an extra point that can be deleted, and oh, how did I must have moved it by accident. Okay, good. So let's take a look at what's happening here. So they're the same. I move it along my x-axis and snap to one of these points. Okay, and I maybe move it back to there. Yeah, that looks good. And then here, GG, I'm just stretching it out or moving this point out. And by GG again, I was performing an edge slide or a vertex slide. Then I can select this profile. Let me turn my other model back on and just extrude, and with Z move this one up a little bit. Yeah, and then you can see, for example, how it goes in there. Okay, that's not too bad. If, for example, you would like this edge to be rounded or to be sharper rounded, we could add 2 more loop cuts, up and down, for example. That would work. Or if you want to, here you could also utilize the bevel tool, and then just add a bevel. If you move your mouse wheel, you can see that it adds a lot of extra roundings. So this is kind of like more rounding, and this is more chamfering. But because we work with subdivided surfaces, I don't really need to make something geometry-wise very round, because this modifier is softening then that surface for me anyway. Terrific. So that was basically how to build everything for the bottom part. And let's make one last check. Alt B, and let's make a look through our object, because I'm curious about how straight that surface and the bottom part is, and it seems to be flat. Okay, great. Good. Let's zoom to my object. Oh. So the next piece we have to tackle is actually the handle. The handle is not really very complicated. So I know roughly here I would like a hole to be punched through. So let me see what type of geometry I have, for example. So I have those faces. And maybe by extruding those in, let's see if it will work. I know it's not going to work because it's making this upper part here very, very tight. So I might have to add some geometry. So let's see. I press K. Maybe here, here, and maybe here and here. Okay, so I locally subdivide it. I delete those faces. Now in object mode, I quickly snap my 3D cursor. And then with my pivot point to 3D cursor, I can press E, extrude, S, escape, and then SX and 0, and scale it in. Let's see. And yeah, I'm actually pretty close. So this is actually not too bad. Keep in mind that this cross section is actually the maximum or the minimum inner width. So for example, here I can move this ring slightly to the inside. Also ask yourself, like, how would, for example, this handle feel if somebody touches it? So here I can play with this a little bit. So you see that I'm just manipulating my center points. And maybe this one here, I move over to a little bit to there. Yeah, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Trying to see if maybe I need to add somewhere a little bit of additional geometry. But again, the art is really trying to minimize the amount of control points, because that always will help you having a really nice and soft surface transition. And my highlights currently are actually pretty good. I'm only increasing the view level here at the moment, so I see those highlights reflections better. You see they're a little bit jagged, and that's because the mesh is very coarse, and before it's much softer. Well, maybe here at this point I can move over a little bit, and maybe here this point I move down slightly. Okay. There are a few issues. For example, from here I see how, for example, there the surface dips in, and that is because I have 1, 2, 3 points. So between these 3 points, the software skins an arc. And I would like this surface go up more straight and then arc in. So what I need to do is actually I can add a loop cut inside here. So maybe there, see where I positioned it. And then I can select maybe those 3 points. And with those 3 points selected, I can press GG. And you see I can then slide this edge over. And when I get closer, you can see here this edge becomes straight, this edge is straight, and then there I have my small edge rounding. So now from the side, this actually looks better. And then the inside is round, because we also will have a button here, so the surface needs to be a little bit more flat. But it means inside the upper part, maybe there, I want to move this down a little bit more, so I have more rounded surface. Now at this point, to work on the handle can become really difficult to really judge how good the curves are. Here's, for example, a situation where I do not want to see my profile sketches. We can work with 1/2. So you see when I turn the viewability inside edit mode for the mirror off, it only shows me half of my object. But it's difficult. I would like to see everything at the same time without only half of my model. So maybe I could start selecting all those meshes. And again, I pressed B to make a big selection, and then I pressed C to brush the rest, and then I press H to hide. And maybe those two I hide as well. Because then, for example, I can rotate my view and look through and pay a little bit attention to the detail I have. And then Alt H makes everything visible again. So yeah, I would actually, I'm close to say this one I would leave this way. Oops, that was my glass. Maybe those points can scale in a little bit more. Simply so that this part becomes nicely organic. And maybe a little bit more like this. Yeah. Okay. And maybe this one I adjust a little bit. Yeah, perfect. So that's basically, for example, a way how you could work on generating the geometry for handle insert. And you see that it's just a little bit of planning, push and pulling, and then making smart decisions about where you will add geometry and where you will not add geometry.